Und doch liegt das größte Geheimnis genau hier. Der Abschied eines Empathen ist nicht nur das Ende einer Beziehung zwischen zwei Menschen. Es ist ein ritueller Akt, den die Psyche selbst einleitet, um einen uralten inneren Bruch zu heilen. Denn jede Trennung ist in Wahrheit ein Spiegel einer inneren Spaltung. Der Empath nimmt nichts mit, wenn er geht. Er hinterlässt dir nur den Raum, der notwendig ist, damit du dir endlich selbst begegnen kannst. Dieser Raum ist eine Tür zum dunklen Zimmer der Seele. Am Anfang ist er kaum zu ertragen, denn all das, was der Empath jahrelang getragen hat, fällt plötzlich in deine Hände. Seine Geduld steht nun deiner Ungeduld gegenüber. Seine Fürsorge trifft auf deine Verbitterung. Sein Schweigen trifft auf deinen inneren Lärm. Darum schmerzt das Verschwinden eines Empathen so sehr, weil der Mensch, der dich jahrelang vor dir selbst geschützt hat, nicht mehr da ist. Doch genau hier beginnt die Transformation. Viele versuchen, diese Stille zu verdrängen, mit neuen Beziehungen, Ablenkungen, alten Mustern. Aber nichts davon funktioniert, denn der Raum, den der Empath hinterlässt, soll nicht gefüllt werden. Er soll verstanden werden. Er ist ein Spiegel, der dich zwingt, in deine eigene Schattenwelt zu blicken. Und der Schatten verlangt seine Begegnung. Seit Anbeginn der Menschheit, nach dem Weggang eines Empathen, beginnt die innere Ordnung sich zu verschieben. Alte Gewohnheiten brechen. Alte Rollen fallen auseinander. Alte Abhängigkeiten verlieren ihren Halt. Es ist, als ob das Leben dich in eine Ecke stellt und sagt, jetzt bist du an der Reihe, dich selbst zu betrachten. Wenn du diesen Ruf ignorierst, wächst der Schmerz. Wenn du ihn annimmst, beginnt die Wandlung. Während du durch die Dunkelheit gehst, erkennst du plötzlich, warum der Empath gehen musste. Nicht als Verrat, nicht als Strafe, sondern als Beginn eines neuen Weges. Ein Empath zeigt dir immer eine Fähigkeit in dir. Die Fähigkeit zu fühlen, zu verstehen, zu verbinden. Aber diese Fähigkeit wird nur gezeigt, niemals ausgeliehen. Have you ever wondered why? Certain women carry an energy that makes people pause, an invisible pull that doesn't come from beauty, status, or charisma, but from something deeper. It's the kind of silent strength that can't be performed, copied, or exaggerated. It's the strength of a woman who has come home to herself. A woman who is no longer trying to impress the world, but to understand her soul. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries an authentic core beneath layers of expectations, wounds, and learned behaviors. This core isn't loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It simply radiates. And when a woman reconnects with it, she becomes magnetic without trying, powerful without force, confident without noise. This kind of confidence doesn't rise from external validation or from telling yourself you're strong. It comes from meeting yourself honestly, without filters, without masks, without pretending everything is fine. Most people don't realize how deeply they've abandoned themselves. They confuse confidence with performance, strength with tension, and worth with recognition. Think about how many times you've doubted your own intuition because someone else had a louder opinion. How many times you silenced your needs to avoid upsetting someone. How many times your body whispered, "Slow down," but you kept going to avoid disappointing others. Every small act of self-betrayal becomes a quiet confirmation that your inner voice isn't worthy of trust. And when this happens for years, you begin to rely entirely on external signals, approval, praise, attention, anything that tells you who you're supposed to be. Jung warned that the greatest danger is not the shadow itself, but the refusal to acknowledge it. When you ignore parts of yourself, your fears, your insecurities, your anger, your desires, they don't disappear. They wait underground, influencing your decisions in ways you don't understand. A woman who hasn't met her own shadow becomes reactive, anxious, easily shaken by rejection, constantly scanning her environment for signs of approval. Her energy becomes unpredictable, tense, fragile. But a woman who has walked through her inner darkness becomes something entirely different. She doesn't fear her emotions anymore because she's no longer a stranger to them. She doesn't chase attention because she already sees herself. She doesn't collapse from rejection because she no longer ties her value to someone else's perception. She has entered the quiet realm Jung described as individuation, the process of becoming whole. And when a woman begins this journey, everything changes. Her presence slows people down. Her silence speaks louder than words. Her boundaries appear naturally without aggression. Her intuition sharpens. Her emotional landscape becomes clear. She no longer confuses chaos with passion or anxiety with love. She becomes a grounded force, steady, aware, compassionate, and deeply connected to herself. There is a certain grace in a woman who knows she doesn't need to perform to be worthy. She can walk into a room without trying to be seen, yet everyone feels her presence. She can listen without absorbing others' emotions. She can love without losing herself. She can say no without guilt and yes without fear. This is not the softness of fragility, it's the softness of someone who has survived herself. Every woman carries two energies within, the self and the wound. The wound seeks validation, fears abandonment, craves certainty, and overthinks every detail. The self moves with clarity, trust, intuition, and inner authority. Most women live from the wound because that's what the world has shaped. But the moment you begin listening to the quiet truth inside you, your real voice, not the one filtered through fear, you begin shifting into your authentic self. This transformation doesn't happen through affirmations or pretending to be confident. It begins in the moments no one sees. The moment you choose rest instead of perfection. The moment you walk away from something that hurts your spirit. The moment you speak honestly, even when you tremble. The moment you refuse to abandon yourself again. Confidence, in Jung's view, isn't something you practice. It's something that emerges when the ego stops fighting the self, when the mask drops, when the wounds are acknowledged, when the shadow becomes integrated rather than feared. A woman who has met all parts of herself becomes unshakable because there is nothing left inside her that she is running from. Imagine it like a tree. The world sees the branches, but the real strength lies in the roots. A woman's roots deepen every time she honors her boundaries, trusts her intuition, tells herself the truth, forgives her past, or chooses peace over performing. These roots anchor her, and because of them, she doesn't rise through force. She rises naturally. There is something undeniably magnetic about a woman who belongs to herself. She doesn't chase. She doesn't prove. She doesn't hide. She doesn't shrink. She simply exists in her truth. People feel it instantly. They may not understand why, but they feel drawn to her energy because she represents something we all crave: inner freedom. And here's the most important part. This energy is not reserved for certain women. It exists in every woman, including you. It exists beneath the wounds, the stories, the disappointments, the masks, the fears. It's waiting, not for perfection, but for honesty. Not for validation, but for awareness. Not for confidence, but for connection. So the real question is not whether you are powerful. The real question is, are you willing to meet the parts of yourself you've avoided, so you can step into who you truly are? Because once a woman returns to herself, the world feels it, and she never has to ask for respect again. Her presence earns it. But awakening this energy requires something rare in today's world: stillness. A moment where you are not performing, not comparing, not planning your next move, simply observing yourself with radical honesty. Jung often warned that the greatest illusions are the ones we create about who we think we are. And many women spend years wearing identities that were handed to them, not chosen by them. The good girl, the strong one, the caretaker, the independent one, the unbothered one, the perfect one. But beneath all of these roles lies the real woman, the one you've buried because you were told she was too emotional, too sensitive, too intense, too much, or not enough. And when you finally meet her, when you look into the eyes of your unfiltered self, something extraordinary happens. The war within you ends. You stop fighting your nature and begin working with it. You stop trying to escape your emotions and start understanding them. You stop fearing solitude and begin craving the clarity it brings. This is where inner authority is born. A woman with inner authority doesn't need to argue, prove, defend, or justify her choices. She moves differently. People feel the shift in her energy long before she speaks. Her presence becomes steady like a mountain, fluid like water, calm like dusk. She is not driven by desperation, but by alignment. Not by fear of losing something, but by the certainty that she will never again lose herself. Jung said that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. This is why so many women repeat the same relationships, same friendships, same jobs, same disappointments. They think they are unlucky, but what's really happening is that their unhealed patterns are choosing for them. The moment you become aware of your patterns, you stop living on autopilot. You begin choosing instead of reacting. You begin responding instead of panicking. You begin discerning instead of attaching. A woman aligned with herself becomes incredibly rare because she no longer participates in emotional chaos. She is not impressed by superficial confidence or intimidated by loud personalities. She sees beyond masks because she has removed her own. She recognizes manipulation instantly because she has faced her shadow. She doesn't collapse under pressure because she has survived storms within herself far greater than anything outside her. And this inner evolution changes how she loves. She no longer seeks someone to complete her, but someone who can meet her. She doesn't fall for intensity. She looks for consistency. She doesn't confuse red flags with passion. She doesn't ignore her intuition. She no longer tries to heal someone through her wounds. Her love becomes slow, patient, conscious, and rooted in self-respect. She would rather walk alone in peace than with someone who disturbs her spirit. Yet this kind of woman is not cold. She is not detached. She is deeply alive, deeply feeling, deeply intuitive. But her emotions are no longer wildfires. They are controlled flames that warm her life instead of burning it down. She cries without shame, speaks without fear, and lets go without bitterness. Her softness becomes a strength, not a weakness. Her boundaries become sacred, not defensive. And her silence becomes a language of its own. As this awakening deepens, something profound begins to unfold. She becomes guided not by the loudness of her fears, but by the clarity of her intuition. And intuition, as Jung suggested, is the whisper of the unconscious, the inner compass that knows long before the mind understands. When a woman starts trusting this compass, her life aligns effortlessly. Opportunities feel guided. Conversations feel meaningful. Decisions feel organic. She stops forcing and starts flowing. And with this shift, the magnetic aura people sense around her is not a mystery anymore. It is the natural glow of a woman who stands in her truth. A woman who has walked through her shadows and returned with wisdom. A woman who knows that she is not defined by what happened to her, but by who she chooses to become. Her glow is not a performance. It is the harmony of a healed inner world. This is why certain women feel unforgettable. Not because of their appearance, but because their self-awareness leaves an imprint on everyone they meet. They mirror something sacred, what it looks like to belong to yourself. And when you stand next to a woman like this, you feel inspired to rise into your own power, to face your own truth, to step into your own light. If you've listened this far, then something inside you is already awakening. Something in you recognizes that your wounds are not your identity, that your shadow is not your enemy, that your softness is not a flaw, that you are allowed to change, allowed to grow, allowed to choose yourself again and again without guilt. And maybe the most important truth of all is this: transformation doesn't begin with a dramatic moment. It begins quietly, in the moment you decide to stop abandoning yourself, in the moment you choose honesty over habit, in the moment you listen to the small voice inside that says, "This is not who I am anymore." That single decision becomes the doorway back to your authentic self. And once a woman walks through that doorway, nothing can dim her again. Not rejection, not fear, not doubt, not the past. Because a woman who has returned to herself doesn't need to shine. She simply cannot help it. In psychology, there is a silent yet powerful phenomenon that shapes a person's entire identity. The alignment between what you say, what you feel, and what you do. When these three elements move in the same direction, you begin to experience inner integrity, a sense of being whole, authentic and grounded. But when you say one thing and do another, something deeper than disappointment begins to form. Your unconscious registers the mismatch as a subtle fracture in your inner foundation. Think about the times you told yourself you would wake up early, change a habit, leave a toxic situation, or finally start something meaningful. In the moment of intention, you feel inspired and hopeful. But when the next day arrives and you slip back into old routines, your mind doesn't simply shrug and forget. A quiet echo appears inside you, a whisper of "you didn't follow through," and your unconscious begins learning something dangerous, that your words cannot be trusted. If this becomes a pattern, the internal damage accumulates. It's like growing up with promises that were always broken. You internalize not only disappointment, but a worldview where nothing stable can be relied upon. Over time, a person who repeatedly abandons their own commitments stops expecting anything from themselves. Their intuition quiets, their motivation collapses, their confidence fades. Not because they lack potential, but because the bond with their inner self has been weakened. But the opposite is also true. Every small promise you honor, even the tiniest one, sends a waterfall of signals through your nervous system. I said I would do it, and I did. That moment becomes a building block. Behavioral psychology shows that repeated, consistent actions carve new neural pathways, strengthening a sense of authority over your own life. This creates a subtle yet profound shift from "life happens" to "me" to "I shape my life." And that shift births genuine confidence, not the loud, superficial version, but a quiet, deep-rooted assurance that grows from self-respect. True confidence doesn't come from external applause or from others believing in you. It emerges when you begin to believe yourself, when your own words carry weight, when your unconscious no longer flinches because it knows you follow through. You don't need the world to validate you, admire you, or cheer you on. You just need to know, if I say I will do something, I will honor it. That singular truth becomes the foundation of a resilient, self-sustaining identity. Think of your inner world as a country. You are both the leader and the citizen. If the leader constantly makes promises that never materialize, the citizens eventually rebel, stop trusting, and lose all motivation to contribute. Chaos takes over. But when promises are kept, no matter how small, the inner society becomes peaceful, structured, and alive. This is the mental landscape where confidence grows effortlessly. Strengthening this inner system doesn't require dramatic transformations. It begins with tiny acts of loyalty to yourself. Waking up at the time you decided, drinking the water you promised, stopping yourself from texting someone who brings you pain, choosing silence instead of self-betrayal. These actions may look insignificant to the outside world, but internally, each one becomes a declaration: I can count on myself. This creates an internal shift so powerful that the outside world cannot ignore it. As you keep aligning your actions with your intentions, your sense of identity starts changing. You begin to feel more centered, less reactive, more aware. You don't break as easily. You don't chase validation. You don't collapse after small failures. You carry yourself differently, subtly at first, then unmistakably. In Jungian psychology, these consistent acts form a bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious. Each time you keep your word, you open a door inside yourself. You signal to the deeper regions of your psyche that you are ready to meet the parts of you that have long been silenced: your intuition, your deeper wisdom, your authentic desires. And the unconscious responds. It sends clarity instead of confusion, stability instead of fear, instinct instead of numbness. Many women dream of becoming more confident, steadier, braver, kinder to themselves, but feel stuck despite consuming endless information. They read books, watch videos, take notes, yet something feels unstable. That instability comes from a lack of inner proof. Knowledge alone cannot ground you. Only action can. Confidence is not a mindset you memorize. It is a relationship you build. And that relationship deepens through awareness. The more aligned you become with yourself, the more sensitive you become to your inner world. You start to hear your intuition again, not as a loud voice, but as subtle sensations. A tightening in the chest when someone isn't good for you, a sense of expansion around the right decision, a heaviness that warns you to step back. Intuition isn't mystical, it's your unconscious communicating through the body, sending messages long before the mind understands. The modern world trains people to ignore these signals. We are taught to analyze everything, to consult others, to seek evidence before acting. But the body stores every experience you've ever lived, every wound, every truth, every red flag you ignored, every moment of alignment. When you listen, the body reveals everything. All you have to do is slow down enough to feel. With each act of inner alignment, you become more aware of what drains you. You notice the conversations that leave you depleted, the people who make your energy collapse, the places where you shrink, the habits that numb you, the situations where your heart quietly retracts. This awareness is not a burden, it's a gift. It shows you where your boundaries need to rise to protect the inner. Trust you are rebuilding. Boundaries are not walls. They are acts of self-respect. They are the invisible lines that protect the sacred ground inside you. When you begin honoring these lines, the world reacts. Some people may resist the new, stronger version of you. Others may feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is confirmation. Not that you're doing something wrong, but that you're finally living consciously, not automatically. As your internal trust strengthens, something remarkable starts to happen. Your presence changes. There is a quiet magnetism around a woman who trusts herself. You don't need to speak louder, or dress differently, or act superior. Your energy speaks before you do. You walk into a room and people can feel the groundedness, the steadiness, the clarity. You don't radiate perfection, you radiate authenticity. This is not charisma built through strategy. It is the natural aura of someone who no longer betrays themselves. Your nervous system becomes regulated, and this creates emotional safety for others. People feel calmer around you. They open up more easily. They mirror your steadiness. You become a catalyst, not by trying to change anyone, but simply by being aligned with yourself. You give others permission to breathe, to slow down, to feel again. This is how conscious women influence the world, quietly, without force, without performance, by simply being whole. Jung believed that each person who awakens to their authenticity awakens it in others. The transformation becomes contagious. You heal yourself, and without intending to, you become a mirror that shows others who they could be. The respect you receive is not demanded. It is a natural response to your inner integrity. You walk in truth so people trust you. You speak from honesty so people listen. You live from alignment so people feel safe in your presence. And perhaps the most profound truth of all is this: inner trust is not something you finally achieve. It is something you cultivate every day, in the quiet choices, in the small promises, in the moments of truth no one watches, in the seconds where you choose not to abandon yourself. A woman who trusts herself is not fearless. She simply refuses to let fear make her decisions. She does not seek validation because her choices validate her. She does not perform confidence, she becomes it. And the power she carries is one the world cannot ignore. If this message speaks to you, stay close. You are already on the path back to yourself, steady, honest, awake. And as this inner trust strengthens, something subtle yet extraordinary begins to unfold in your daily life. You start noticing that the world responds to you differently. Not because people have changed, but because your energy no longer leaks. You are no longer walking around with invisible wounds wide open, hoping someone else will soothe them. You begin carrying yourself with an unspoken dignity, a quiet certainty that you are responsible for your own emotional landscape. This shift affects your choices. You stop chasing situations that drain you. You no longer tolerate chaos disguised as passion. You lose interest in conversations that don't align with your growth. Even your silence becomes intentional. Not a retreat, but a return to your center, your clarity, your truth. And from this center, life becomes less about control and more about alignment. You begin to realize something profound. The people who are meant for you resonate with your peace, not your pain. They are drawn not to your brokenness, but to your wholeness. They do not require you to shrink, bend, or sacrifice your inner harmony just to be loved. They meet you where you are, not where they want you to be. This is one of the most beautiful consequences of self-trust. It filters your relationships effortlessly. You no longer cling to the wrong people because you no longer cling to the wrong parts of yourself. You no longer fight to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer give explanations where silence would serve you better. And you no longer beg for reciprocity because genuine